It was a dingy little place, partly a cobbler's shop with a few boxes of shoes lined up on one wall. The man who waited on us was a lean, sour-looking character, and there was a kind of smelly, vile air about the shop. However, I was eager to get the overshoes, and because they cost $1.50, I felt that this was a good chance to get my $20 bill changed. The man gave me a mean look when I handed the bill to him. "This the smallest you got?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "In fact, it's all I've got." He looked at the bill, folding it together and then smoothing it out. "Where'd you steal this?" he asked curtly. "I didn't steal it. I've been working for a carnival down in Baton Rouge. This is the money I saved in 4 weeks." "Likely story. I ain't seen a kid with this much money on him in 2 years." He leaned forward suddenly and barked in my face. "Come clear now. Where'd you steal this?" "I've told you I didn't steal it, but if you don't want to do business with me, give me my money and I'll buy overshoes somewhere else." "Oh, no, you won't." He drew the bill back, then held it up to the light, peering at it from all angles, when a gray, rabbit-like man shuffled past the door. The shoe-keeper called to him. "Hey, Sheriff, come in here for a minute." The man looked dazed. "What you saying, Alf? What you want with me?" "I'm telling you to come in. What's the matter? You only been elected sheriff so lately you don't recognize your title?" The man shook his head, frowning as he stood in the doorway. The shoe-keeper walked over to him. "Now, Sheriff, you've had a lot of experience. I want you to tell me something. This here's a counterfeit bill, ain't it? Look at it carefully and tell me. Come on now. It's counterfeit, ain't it?" The little gray man swallowed. He glanced at us and back at the man in front of him. "I reckon if you say so, Alf. I reckon." "Not if I say so. I want your word, Sheriff, right here before these kids. This is a counterfeit bill, ain't it?" Yeah, I'd say it's counterfeit, Alf. Looks to me like a counterfeit." "All right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you, Sheriff. You can get on down to the jail now. I may have some customers for you before long." The man shuffled off, and the shoe man turned to us. "Now, you kids listen to me. One yip out of you, and I'll have you turned in for most any misdemeanor I can think of. I can have this young one shut up in a detention home, and you, my friend, you can loll in the county jail for a while and see how you like it. Now I'm giving you a chance. You can take the overshoes, I'll do that much for you, but I'm keeping the bill. I might just turn it into the government, let 'em go to work tracking down the counterfeiters. So take your choice. Get out with the overshoes or yip just once and see what happens to you." We were helpless, and I knew it. He could tell almost any lie about us. He could trump up any one of a half a dozen stories to get us into trouble. And he could produce a half a dozen little rabbit men who would let themselves be bullied into becoming his accomplices. I had never wanted to strike another person so much in my life, but I realized that here was real danger. Here was a liar and a thief who had us at his mercy, and he knew it. We picked up the box containing the overshoes and walked out. Joey's face was white. I expect mine was too. I glanced back just once, and the man was looking at us with half-closed eyes and a hateful little smile on his mouth. We got out of town as quickly as possible. We got out without saying a word to one another. Once out on the highway, I glanced at Joey and saw tears all over his face. I was miserable as we walked down the highway together. Finally, I said, "It's my fault, Joey. I had to impress a small-time gangster that I had money in my wallet. We could have paid for your overshoes with dollar bills, and the old man wouldn't have got any big ideas. I'm a stupid fool. There's no doubt about it. I ought to be kicked from here to Omaha." Joey grinned as he wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm not going to kick you while I'm wearing my $20 overshoes, little brother," he said, mimicking Charlie's patronizing tone. We felt somewhat better because we were able to laugh. I knew it was pointless to dwell on our loss. I tried to get my mind on other things, but the shoe man's meanness and sheer gall would flash back in my mind in spite of myself. Sometimes I clenched my fists and could almost feel the impact of my knuckles against his ugly face. In spite of our loss, we weren't as poor as we had been at times that year. We still had Emily's cookies and the bag of pecans, and Joey had over $4 in his pocket. A few months earlier, we would have felt wealthy with those assets. Late in the afternoon, after a 10-mile lift in a farmer's truck and what must have been a 5-mile walk on our own, we had a bit of luck in finding a place to sleep. It was a country schoolhouse, and a thin curl of smoke from the chimney told me that a fire had been banked in the stove for the night. I figured if we could get inside, we'd have a warm place to rest until morning. To our surprise, the door wasn't locked. The latch was broken there, and there had been no attempt made to bar entrance. Once inside, we could understand the lack of concern over a lock. There just wasn't anything of value to be taken. There were 15 or 20 desks, a few of them broken down, all of them ink-covered and scratched. There was an ancient globe, a few dull-looking textbooks, and a stretch of blackboard on which someone, probably a teacher, had written, "Reduced to the lowest common denominator." But whatever was to have been reduced was erased. That written command somehow amused me, sourly and unhappily. I didn't quite know why. The schoolroom didn't look like much. I could imagine how kids hated being there. We poked around for a while, but there wasn't much to see. Besides, we were dead tired, and so we pulled a couple of desks up to the big stove and stretched our legs out toward the warmth. We took out 4 of Emily's cookies and a handful of pecans for our supper, and while we ate, we talked about one thing and another, both of us avoiding the painful subject of our humiliation in the shoe shop. Then, as darkness filled the room, we wrapped ourselves in the blanket Emily had given us and made the dusty floor our bed for the night. We slept heavily in spite of anger and worry. I woke up when the first light of morning began drifting in and got up quietly to stand at one of the grimy windows. I looked out at the morning for a long time, trying to think straight. I tried to make plans as I stood there. With Joey's money, we could eat a little for a few days. With luck, we could catch a few long rides during the day and find a few warm spots where we could rest at night. It surely wouldn't be too long until we'd reach Nebraska. And Nebraska meant Lonnie, and Lonnie meant comfort and protection. Even as that thought came to me, however, I realized that Joey and I could not knock at Lonnie's door some morning and say, "Here we are, be a father to us." I was not quite that childish. Somehow we had to show him that we were able to get along, that our need for him was only a need for friendship. In the back of my mind, though, I knew that it was the need of 2 kids who were fearful of a black abyss which they might have to face alone. Joey stirred restlessly in half-wakeful sleep. "Will we have any breakfast, Josh?" he asked. I couldn't answer for a moment. Then I called to him, telling him we'd better get going on our way, that maybe we'd find something to eat farther down the road. We had breakfast in the next little town. I made Joey eat an egg and toast and drink a cup of hot cocoa. I had only cocoa after I'd convinced Joey that I wasn't hungry. A guy who could help bring about the loss of $20, as I had done, could simply pull his belt a little tighter. We walked long distances during the next few weeks, getting a lift now and then, usually in some farmer's truck. Occasionally, we got a 50-mile ride, and on 2 or 3 red-letter days, we were treated to a hot dog or a chocolate bar by some kindly driver. We found places to sleep, a hallway in the business section of a town, a railroad depot, a haystack on a mild night. A few times, some families let us have a bed for a quarter. But as Joey's money dwindled, we saved every cent for food, which was more important than a bed. As the winds grew harsher and the snow deeper, I worried about Joey. The bitter February weather we encountered as we moved into Kansas was a threat to anyone as undernourished and overtired as we were. Surprisingly enough, however, Joey's health was better than mine. I developed a deep cough that grew worse with each day, and it was Joey who spent his last dime to buy cough medicine for me. It was Joey who begged at kitchen doors and brought food to me at times when my legs refused to go any farther. The business of keeping alive became harder each day. We kept our spirits up by reminding ourselves that we were getting nearer and nearer to Lonnie. That was true, but we were paying a steep price for the fulfillment of our goal.